Right. Very good afternoon, all of you. Uh, so, in the yesterday session, we started with an overview of income tax, why the taxation is important. So, what are all the different types of taxes are there? How we are going to be assessed? What kind of sources which is going to help us to study for the Income Tax Act 1961? And finally, what we discussed, how do we determine the total taxable income of an individual as well as the company and also the firms. So there are 13 steps we have to follow each and every year as a part of your duty if you are going to be audit the books of accounts. So this is the stages or steps we have to follow to determine the taxability income of an assessee. So with this, when you are going to decide, I'm going to determine my taxability income. If so, yes, the stage one, it is very important. You have to determine the residential status. So this is the exclusive topic we are going to discuss today's lecture. Residential status, section 6, as per Income Tax Act 1961. There are some examples I can able to share at this moment. Say, like us, we born and brought in India. We never gone out of India, so we never gone for any abroad visit, either employment or any other purposes. So always we are considering as we are the citizens of India. So when you are going to be calculate residential status of an assessee, that is an individual, so don't compare with or don't confuse with your citizens of India. The citizenship will never expire, but your residential status will vary year to year. Say suppose this year I went for an abroad either for my personal visit or either for my employment purpose. I am going to stay back a period of 6 months or 7 months, in some time a period of 1 year. So then obviously, as per our income tax calculation purpose, the financial year we are going to analyze whether the assessee is stayed in India for a minimum stipulated period. That is a objective why we are going to determine the residential status. So therefore, me and yourself or anybody, they are ready to pay some amount of taxes based upon their income. So at the foremost care you have to be taken to determine the residential status. That is why I mentioned in this slide the taxability of an individual in India depends upon his or her residential status for the particular financial year. Please note a point here, a particular financial year is nothing but we are going to take it as a previous year's base. That previous year only we are going to be treat as a financial year, right? So previous year, how many number of days are you are in India? Even if you are a citizen of India or you are a basically Indian origin, whatever it may be, it is a must you have to determine. So whether you are a citizen or non-resident, like that. That is the objective why we are going to use the concept called residential status. So as I mentioned that residential status of an assessee is to be determined in respect of each previous year, every year. So last year I may be an ordinary resident. This year I may not be ordinary resident. And next year I may be a non-resident. There has to be some circumstances. That is how we are going to determine. So how much days you are in India. That is the thing we are going to be taking part. Based on that only, we are going to determine the residential status. That's why very exclusively mentioned that whether even you are a citizens of India or origin from India, whatever it may be, so each and every year it is a must you have to analyze your residential status because it will vary from year to year, right? That is very important. So as per the norms, taxpayers in India, we are going to divide it into three categories. The first category is residential status of an individual, residential status of HUF. Both are same. There is no big differences. Only thing is, like us, a small family, we are going to be treated as a individuals. Hindu undivided family is nothing but it is a big family which is headed by one person. That person name it is called Karta as per the norms. That person which is going to deal all the fiscal matters. So Hindu undivided family, association of persons, as we discussed yesterday, we are going to make an association with the help of individuals as well as firms and companies jointly together. They are going to performing some activity or service with a profit motive and the body of individuals. Only individuals can become a member of in this group except firms and companies. So this is the first category. The second category is firms and companies. This is the second one firms and the third one companies. So these three we are going to be considered when you are going to analyzing the residential status of a particular assessee. Please understand. So this is a simple overview for your understandability. Taxed in India, right? If you are a resident in this particular financial year, the worldwide income which is taxable. Worldwide income is nothing but whatever the income you derived from India as well as outside India, that is called foreign income. Any income you earned, all the incomes which comes under the purview of taxable manner or taxable income. If you are a non-resident of India during the particular financial year, so exclusively Indian income alone, which is going to be take part as a taxable income. Say suppose you are earned some amount of money from your foreign sources, those income which is not going to be taken for the tax purpose because you are going to pay the tax over that particular country where you are living. So this is a very important one, you please. Then types of residential status. It is very important, right? Broadly, there are two types of residence. One it is called resident. The second one it is non-resident. That is a non-resident of India. One is resident. The second one non-residents. This is the two types. Under the resident category, we are going to have two options. One, it is called ordinary resident, like us. We never went anywhere outside India. We born and brought, we are living here. So always we are going to be here as an ordinary resident. But this particular year, I moved for another country and stayed for a period of 9 months. Then it is a question mark. It is a must you have to apply certain provisions while calculating the residential status. At that particular time, whether you are an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, we have to be evaluated. So therefore, residential status will have two types. One is a resident, the second one non-resident of India, or simply we are using term non-resident. Under resident, we have two possibilities. One, it is ordinary resident of India. The second one, NOR, called not ordinary resident. That is how we are going to be read resident with ordinary resident, resident but not ordinary resident, ROR, right? Or NOR. So simply you have to read resident with ordinary resident, the resident but not ordinary resident. This is the first type of resident. Will have two subtopics. Then the next type is non-resident of India. So based upon this, we have to analyze the determination of my residential status to find out whether you are a resident with ordinary resident or a resident but not ordinary resident or non-resident of India. That is the purpose we are going to be have discussion. So how to determine the residential status of an individual? So you please add what else, right? Individual, Hindu undivided family, association of persons, body of individuals, local authorities, all we are going to be considered as individual, right? So even an individual person, human being, he earned some amount of income during this particular year, then immediately I am going to be determine my residential status for that particular year. So as you have to follow two steps. First, you have to find out whether the such individual is a resident or not. That is the first step you have to determine. The second step you have to determine whether you are a ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. Okay. So, however, such individual, if not fulfilling the conditions what it was laid down as per the section 6 of Income Tax Act 1961, then automatically the particular person will comes under the category of non-resident of India. If you are a non-resident, so there is no other calculations necessary. There is no other calculations necessary. So therefore, when you are going to decide to determine the residential status, the step one, you have to make an analysis whether you are resident of India or not. The next step, whether you are an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, that you have to be determined. This is the two steps. So how do I determine whether I am a resident or not? That is the next heading, basic conditions as per section 6 of Income Tax Act 1961. When I want to determine whether I am a resident or non-resident of India, this is the provision. Please look at, this is the two conditions. The first condition is he is in India the previous year. Previous year means preceding to the 12 months of assessment year, right? Previous year for a period of 182 days or more, right? So please understand these basic conditions are very, very important whenever you are going to be, right? So he is a resident of India in the particular previous year. If you want to claim your residential status, it is a must you have to stay at least a period of 182 days or more during the previous year. Immediately the question I am asking, or the someone is going to ask the question, suppose if I am fails to stay a period of 182 days, what do I do? Then immediately look at the next basic condition. He is in India for a period of 60 days. In the particular previous year, I stayed only 60 days or more, right? Then during the previous year and 365 days or more during the 4 years preceding to the previous years. Preceding to the previous years. That is before 31st March 2019 as far as ours concerned, right? Out of these two basic conditions, at least one condition, if it is satisfied, then you are be a resident. Any one of these two basic conditions, it is a must to be satisfied at least one, then obviously the particular individual to be treated as a resident of India. But certain exclusions and inclusions are there, right? So that we will have a discussion later. You look at, simply I mentioned over here basic condition how to be satisfied. Either your minimum period of stay is 182 days, or if you are failing that days, then 60 plus 365 days in the last 4 preceding previous years. Once you are satisfied any one of these basic conditions, then automatically you will be considered and satisfied the step number one, I become a resident. Once I found I am a resident, then next we are going to move the second aspect, whether you are an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. Once you are finding ordinary resident, it is very easy. Look at the additional conditions or otherwise compulsory conditions. That is why I use the word here and. Both the conditions should be satisfied. As per section 6, subsection 6, clause A, to test as to when the particular individual, whether it is an ordinary resident or not. When you want to be an ordinary resident in India, these two compulsory conditions should be satisfied. He has been in resident in India for at least 2 years. At least 2 years out of 10 previous years. Look at preceding to the relevant previous year. Relevant previous year means that is 31 for 2019 to 31st March 2020 as far as ours concerned. Preceding to the previous years. He has been resident in India for at least 2 years out of 10 previous years. This condition also should be satisfied, and he has been in India for at least 730 days in all during the 7 previous year preceding to the relevant previous years. Preceding to the relevant previous years. Dear student, please understand previous year only which is going to help to determine whether you are a resident or not. That is a previous slide what we discussed. In the slide, it is preceding 12 months of previous years. How, and that condition should be satisfied. Therefore, the two compulsory conditions are he has to satisfy be a resident for 2 years out of 10 years. Once you are going to satisfy 2 years fully, then your tenure will be completed obviously 730 days. Immediately, your question is suppose I stayed the total counting numbers 729 days. Then obviously you are not satisfied the second compulsory condition. Then you will not be treated as. Please. Here, both the day of arrival and the day of departure, both days should be inclusive while calculating the residential status. While calculating the residential status. So this is a two compulsory condition. If you are satisfied, then you are a resident with ordinary resident. This is the first condition about determination of residential status. Look at simply I used additional condition is equal to 2 out of 10 years and 730 days out of 7 years. Right? Therefore, resident with ordinary residence category, if you want to retain, this is a provision. One basic condition should be satisfied, plus both additional conditions are to be satisfied. If these conditions are satisfied, then the particular individual will be treated as resident with ordinary resident. Immediately, the question which is going to be, right? Suppose if I'm satisfied the resident category, right? At least first basic condition is satisfied, either a second condition is satisfied. So I treated as a resident. But any one of the compulsory conditions, if not satisfied, any one of the compulsory condition, please note, any one of the compulsory conditions, if not satisfied during the determination of your residential period of the previous year, then automatically the particular individual will be treated as resident but not ordinary resident. Right? Please note a point. If you are failing any one of the satisfaction of compulsory conditions, automatically the particular individual will be treated as resident but not ordinary resident. Then the next type of resident, non-resident of India. It is very simple, gentlemen. One basic condition itself, if not satisfied, that is, obviously your stay is less than 60 days. Obviously, your stay is less than 60 days. Automatically, your first basic conditions also not satisfied. Your second basic conditions also not satisfied. Then automatically the particular individual will be treated as non-resident of India. So this is the provisions. It is a must we have to follow each and every year when you are going to be determine the residential status of an individual. Okay, so please note a point. There are other points also. It is very important. Look at may not be continuous. Say for example, I stayed for say for example 250 days. That is a total stay during the previous year. I stayed 50 days in Chennai. I stayed another 100 days in Bangalore. I stayed another 100 days in Delhi is not a problem. All which comes under the part of our country. Therefore, maybe in the one place or may not be in the right, it is one. So may not be continuous is nothing but, so I came here for the previous year and stayed for 60 days in the particular time, then immediately I moved for another country, then I came back after 2 months, then I stayed for another 60 days, Then I went back to the other country. Then I came here for stayed and another 70 days. So 70 plus 60 plus 60. So automatically where you are going to be treated as more than right 180 days. So once you satisfied more than 182 days, then automatically you will be treated as a resident. That is the first point. May not be continuous, may or may not be in one place. As I already mentioned, both the day of arrival and the day of departure should be included. The presence of Indian territorial waters, those who are working in the ships are crew as a member in that particular time, even you are outside of India, which is going to be considered automatically your presence in India. So therefore, obviously, the second basic condition not satisfied, not applicable. Not satisfied is wrong, not applicable, right? So then it is very very important. Then another one important point you please understand, if you are going for an employment purpose either on behalf of India, right, or otherwise you are going for exclusively for employment purpose, even you are going for a private employment nature, in that situation also the second basic condition will not be applicable, will not be applicable. So two exclusions when you are going to be apply for the second basic condition to be applicable. So if you are working in the ship or crew as a member, the ship normally belongs to in India, then automatically you will be treated as presence in India. So at that situation, the minimum number of period of stay it should be required at least 182 days. The second basic condition will not be applicable. Then if you are going for an employment either on behalf of government of India or you are going for your personal employment, you are going to stay back hereafter, in that situation also the second basic condition will not be applicable. So both situations, if you want to satisfied as a resident, the minimum must you have to stay at least 182 days. This is a two important exclusions when you are going to calculate the resident of India using the second basic condition. But the last year, Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned the last budget, which is going to applicable from 1st April 2020 onwards, right? The second basic condition, right? If your total Indian income, right, exceeds 15 lakhs, okay, not from the foreign income, not from the foreign income, right, which exceeds 15 lakhs, right? In that situation, that 60 days to be replaced into 120 days. That 60 days to be replaced in 120 days. Thus is applicable only from 1st April 2020 onwards. When you are going to calculate the next year for the determination of residential status, it is must you have to take this point also. Okay, based on that only you have to be determined your residential status. Please understand all of you, right? So physical presence of assessee, it is very important. So all these conditions must be satisfied when you want to determine your residential status. So what we discussed so far. So what do you mean by residential status? Why it is important? So residential status of an every individual, it is must you have to determine year to year, right? Year and year, there may be a possibility will vary of your residential status. Even you are a person from Indian origin or you are a citizens of India, that is a depends on the availability of your stays in India. So we are going to be determined. Okay, so generally two types. One is resident, the second one is no, not non-resident, right? This is the two types. Under resident, there are two types: ordinary resident, the second one not ordinary resident, right? When you want to fulfill the resident category, there are two basic conditions as per section 6 subsection sorry, as per section 6 of Indian Income Tax Act 1961. The minimum number of stay which is required 182 days or more. That is the first basic condition. Else, if you fails to satisfy that, we are moving to the second basic condition. That is, during the previous year, your stay is 60 days or more, plus it is must you have to complete 365 days in the four preceding to the previous years. Any one of these basic condition is satisfied, then you will be treated as a resident. Then we are moving to the second thing, that is the compulsory conditions, whether you are going to assess whether you are an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. If you want to retain ordinary resident status, there are the two compulsory conditions. This must you have to satisfy 2 out of 10 years preceding to the previous year. It is a must you have to satisfy as a resident. And the total number of period of stay 730 days. It is a must you have to complete from the 7 preceding to the previous years. When you are going to complete these two compulsory conditions, then automatically the particular individual will be a resident with ordinary resident. If you are failing any one of the compulsory conditions, automatically you will be treated as resident but not ordinary resident, right? If you are failing the basic conditions itself, then automatically the particular person will be treated as non-resident of India. So this is the way, this is the provision. It is a must you have to follow each and every year when you want to determine your residential status of an individual. Look at the simple understandability. What is the provision which is applicable for individual? The same provision which is applicable, there is no deviation. Only the firms and companies will have different. As individual, association of persons or body of individuals, Hindu undivided family, whatever the provision so far we discussed about determination of the residential status, absolutely same. There is no differences. Okay. So with this, we will wind up. In the next class, we will have a discussion. So how do we determine the gross total income? What do you mean by incidence of taxation? So how, based on the residential status, we have to take it our income, whether it is a taxable or not. We will have a discussion in the next class. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you.